Left, right and centre, I'm Nidhi Razdan. The big story tonight continues to be the political crisis in Tamil Nadu. Just a few minutes ago, Sasikala has staked claim to form the government. She has submitted a list of MLAs, more than 130 of them, we believe, to the Governor Vidyasagar Rao, and has formally staked claim. She is still believed to be inside Raj Bhavan, where the meeting with the governor began at 7:30 this evening. It's been a day, once again, of high drama in the state. Mr. Panneerselvam, the outgoing chief minister, met the governor earlier as well. All he came out and said after that is that I assure you that good things will happen and that truth will prevail and justice will be done. What exactly did he tell the governor? Did he get any assurances? We're going to try and get to the bottom of that. These pictures of Sasikala just over an hour ago, before she headed to the Raj Bhavan, she first went to Jayalalitha's memorial, and those papers in her hand is the list of signatures, we believe, of the 130 MLAs who are backing her, 130 of 135 who are backing her, a list that she presented at Jayalalitha's memorial before moving on to Raj Bhavan, where we believe she is probably still there. Srinivasan Jain joining us now with the very latest on that developing story. Uma Sudhir also tracking the developments for us at the governor's house. Uma, she's still in there. What's the latest from Raj Bhavan?
If I were to compare Panneerselvam's meeting and Sasikala's meeting, Panneerselvam's meeting took just 15 minutes. Now it's about half hour since Sasikala has gone inside and not out yet. Yes, as you mentioned, the IADMK official handle itself has tweeted what we all know, that she has taken a claim to form the government. She has presented her list of 130 odd MLAs, that 134 MLAs who have in fact expressed support to her becoming the leader of the legislature party, and she would like to be sworn in as chief minister as early as possible. Huge numbers of police present outside the Raj Bhavan. Both Panneerselvam and Sasikala in fact came in with a huge convoy of cars, at least 15 cars in fact. Sasikala's supporters, about 100 of them, also outside raising slogans in support of her, but both of them only being given an opportunity to go and meet the governor with about 10 people. So Sasikala doesn't get an opportunity to parade her MLAs or the strength of her MLAs before the governor. Whether the governor will subsequently choose to meet each of these people individually to ascertain for himself which way they stand, that is not yet clear. But all that we know is that he has told Mr. Panneerselvam that legal options will be explored.
They were just getting live pictures from the other camera there. She's just leaving the Raj Bhavan now, and as Uma was pointing out there, Sasikala leaving Raj Bhavan, she was in there for about 30 minutes. And as Uma was pointing her out, that is more than double the time that Mr. Panneerselvam spent with the governor earlier this evening at about 5:30. Srinivasan Jain with us as well. Vasu, what exactly do we know about the Panneerselvam governor meeting? What exactly did he say to the governor? In this case, we know she staked claim. But what did Mr. Panneerselvam tell the governor? And do we know anything at all about what the governor said?
Okay, this is what we do know, Nidhi, about that meeting. We do know from a senior minister who was part of that 10-member delegation, a gentleman called Nathan Vishwanathan, a former ADMK minister and leader. He told me that essentially they all 10 went to see the governor, but it was Mr. Panneerselvam who met him alone for that duration of time that they were there. It was a one-to-one meeting. In that course of time, Mr. Panneerselvam handed him a petition with a list of their demands. He said he couldn't specify what those demands were. That, he says, was entirely a confidential exchange between Mr. Panneerselvam and the governor. But what he did say is that the governor apparently told Mr. Panneerselvam that he'll do whatever is required as per the law. So that was the exact quote. He will follow the law, is what the governor told Mr. Panneerselvam, which is, of course, somewhat cryptic, but at least they are interpreting it as a sign that it's not just been a cakewalk for Sasikala, that this indicates that even after Sasikala makes her presentation, he may actually do some legal consultation on who has the more legitimate claim out of both of them, and then presumably take a decision rather than straight away invite her to form a government. And any delay gives them hope, because that means the Supreme Court verdict is looming. It could mean that, like we saw today, more senior ADMK leaders might cross over. Perhaps the MLAs might start having second thoughts. But of course, all of that will depend with what the Raj Bhavan now says. Now that the Sasikala meeting is over, most likely a statement is expected. Whether he's going to come out with some kind of a decisive move, like invite her or ask for a floor test, or whether he simply says he needs time for consultations.
Well, Vasu, just stay with us. Uma, there's also the question of where the MLAs are and what's happening with them. You've had Sasikala's camp denying that they've, been sort of sequestered and locked away somewhere to prevent them from being poached. And they had claimed earlier that they were in the MLAs hostel. We investigated and found that that wasn't the case. They weren't in the MLAs hostel. Where are the MLAs and do we know what they're saying at this point?
One, the MLAs who are still said to be supporting Sasikala have been kept away in hotels and in resorts in and around Chennai. In fact, we had even tracked down one of those resorts where our colleague Smita had in fact gone there and visited and seen some of those MLAs there. But yes, they were not present at the MLA hostel where Srinivasan Jain had visited earlier this evening and found that despite an assurance given by the Tamil Nadu government in court that the MLAs were present in the hostel, there were no MLAs really at the MLA hostel itself. I must point out that in fact this was in response to a habeas corpus that was filed in the court by a citizen saying that his constituency MLA is missing. There was also another case of a husband whose wife is an MLA from Krishnarayapuram, Geeta. Her husband filed a habeas corpus saying that his wife is missing and therefore they would like the court to present them, and it was in response to that the government council strangely enough said that they were at the MLA hostel, which it did not appear, at least from our investigation, to be true. On the other hand, the few MLAs who are with Panneerselvam, we did speak to one of them and he said that signatures were taken under duress. In fact, they were not even aware of why the signatures were being taken. He said they were not even aware of what the meeting was called for on Sunday when he said that in fact we were called saying that there is going to be a meeting to discuss constituency issues. This was the message that went to them on Saturday to ask to be present, and they were taken to a room and made to sign on 4 papers, and subsequently Mr. Panneerselvam came out in the party headquarters and said that he had resigned. He said this MLA in fact who is from Cholavandan, Mr. Manikam, said that they were utterly shocked, taken aback by this move, that suddenly there was a change in the legislature party leadership. Back to you, Nidhi.
Well, Vasu, then the question becomes, what does the governor do next? And at this point, it's anyone's guess, because this has really been bizarre the way this whole political story has played out in this week. First, the governor wasn't even there in Chennai. He attended mundane convocations in Mumbai, where he's holding a joint charge of Maharashtra, of course, and then came here. But, what is the next logical step? Now that he's met both of them, would it be to ask for a parade of MLAs or to have a floor test? And because Mr. Panneerselvam has resigned and his resignation has been accepted, who will be asked to prove that floor test?
Well, these are all legitimate questions to ask, and I'm sure that, those who have a far greater experience on matters constitutional and legal would be better placed to answer that. But I think broadly from just, my understanding of it, based on the events of the past few days, a couple of things. I mean, I think, frankly, if you cut all this noise away, if you look at it in terms of hard numbers, it is true that despite everything else, Sasikala does still have that list of all the MLAs who signed off in support of her. And she has evidence of not one, but 2 legislative party meetings, both of which were attended by almost every single MLA of the party. She also claims to have a list of MPs, all the MPs supporting her. Not a single MP, she says, is broken away from the Lok Sabha. So effectively, if that claim is true, which it largely seems to be, then frankly, it really doesn't give the governor too many options. There's not much wiggle room there. He really has no other choice but to invite her. Of course, he could turn around and cite the reason for of the Supreme Court verdict and say that's the reason to delay taking a decision, which is a contested claim. As you know, there are others who feel that the court should really play no role in deciding the outcome. Or he could give some weightage to Mr. Panneerselvam's claim that, listen, I did give you a resignation, but it was coerced, and now I have all these senior ADMK leaders also with me. They're also saying it's coerced, so you need to relook at all of this. If he gives either of those 2 things weightage, then it splits it all wide open. But otherwise, if he goes strictly by the book, as some say, then frankly, it is Sasikala who has the best shot at being called and asked to take charge of Tamil Nadu.
All right, Vasu, Uma, we let you go for now, and we are, as you said, Vasu, waiting for a statement perhaps from Raj Bhavan itself, and perhaps Sasikala will say something also. So let's wait and see how that story develops over the next hour or so. Mr. Subhash Kashyap, constitutional expert, former Lok Sabha Secretary General, here in the studio with us. Senior Supreme Court Advocate Sanjay Hegde with us tonight. We have Aman Sinha of the BJP, Mr. C Rajashekharan of the AIADMK, Mr. Mohan Ram, well-known actor, Mr. N Ram of the Hindu group is with us tonight, and Mr. M.R. Venkatesh, a well-known political analyst, also joining us tonight. Let me ask Mr. Kashyap first. So, what are the governor's options now? He's met both sides. What can the governor do next, or should the governor do next?
Under the constitution, we are talking of the book and the law. Under constitutional law, the governor has to appoint the chief minister. It is entirely his prerogative. Technically, he can appoint anybody, but there is a subsequent provision in the constitution under which the council of ministers, headed by the chief minister, is responsible to the assembly, which has been interpreted, and rightly so, to mean that the governor has to appoint only a person, number one, who is qualified for being appointed as governor, number two, who should have, in the governor's opinion, possibility of getting clear majority support of the house, not of any party, majority of the house.
Are you saying the governor has a lot of discretion in deciding this? Do you think the governor has actually conducted himself in the right way in this case?
Whether the governor has conducted himself in the right way, I think we should look at the constitution, the fundamental duty of every citizen. The very first fundamental duty of every citizen includes respect for institutions of the constitution. So we have to accept the bona fides of a person occupying the office of governor.
So in other words, you're saying he's right to delay this decision until he's absolutely sure?
Only he knows what is the actual position, on what basis he is delaying. All that I can expect, and I hope, that the governor should not be pressurized, the governor should not function under duress of anyone,
okay,
and the governor should stay above controversy, above party politics, and he should fairly and objectively
Well, I saw Mr. Sanjay Hegde disagreeing with you on that point, Sanjay, and why is that? Because what Mr. Kashyap is saying, and this was a point Mr. Soli Sarabji was making yesterday as well, is that they believe that there is a certain discretion that the governor has to ensure that the person occupying this position is someone who is qualified to do so. So there clearly seems to be a very different point of view legally, Sanjay, on what the governor's role should be here.
Well, quite frankly, what is the qualification required of a chief minister under the constitution? There's nothing called academic qualifications. He or she has to be somebody who commands a majority in the legislature, or if in the case of the prime minister, in the parliament. The governor no doubt has discretion, but that discretion is very limited in very few cases, and even that cannot be arbitrary. The governor cannot play favorites. I do understand a case of discretion where one side has 60 and the other side has 65, but the person with 60 may have some more MLAs from some other parties supporting him. That kind of discretion may be, and we saw President Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy use it when he called Charan Singh to form a government, even though Mr. Charan Singh subsequently failed to prove his majority on the floor of parliament. But in a case where there are 130 on one side and 4 or 5 who are holding out, then I don't see what is the evidence that the governor can use to ask the former former chief minister whose resignation has been accepted and who's only there in
Accepted,
the
Sanjay, if you have
capacity
new,
to again
if
face
you have
the
new
legislature.
facts that come to light,
I
for
do not
instance,
think this kind of constitutional gymnastics is permissible.
you're calling it constitutional
You said-
gymnastics, but I just want to
Excuse me,
ask it that
excuse
if,
me.
okay, sir, go ahead.
You said that he disagrees with me. I don't think that he has expressed any disagreement with what I said.